I'll try one more time. Sorry about that. I inadvertently turned on a speaker so I got feedback. So KI5KWG, Cruz, I've got you checked in. Anyone else? Okay, well, I guess it's going to be one of those quiet evenings. I'm surprised that maybe there's something really exciting going on tonight, and I'm not aware of it, but we'll go ahead and continue. Let's see. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? They can be of ham, astronomical, space, or general interest, like SAM. All right, well, I can go through the usual litany of things here. We have the AMSAT Amateur Radio Net group that has two nets available in Dallas. One is on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You'll need Echolink installed. Actually, it's 3 nets, but 2 of them on Tuesday evenings. You'll need Echolink installed, and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available at their website, amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. We also have our 2 nets here in Dallas. We have the AMSAT Net East, that's in Dallas-Fort Worth, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater. Tom N5HYP is the net control. Are welcome to check in. Except for the first Tuesday of the month, which is the ARC Club night, in which case there is no AMSAT Net East. There is an AMSAT Net West. If you miss the Tuesday net every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, they have their frequency is 147.140 megahertz, TL 110.9 megahertz with a positive offset. This net is, oh, never mind. Okay, we have a number of DARC nets available. Most of these you know, I'll tell you Monday night. We have on Monday evenings the first week, Amfixen's net. If you're interested in food or cooking, this is the net for you to be a part of. Starts at 7 o'clock, goes to whenever you guys run out of recipes. Second week is MCOM 101, learn about emergency communications. Kevin, N5ARG is the net control for that one. If you'd like to learn about served agencies that you might want to participate with, that's a good net to be a part of. Third week is the second Amfixen's net, or second helping, also at 7 o'clock. And then fourth week is GeekNet. GeekNet, we expand beyond just amateur radio and head into all places unknown. It's interesting. It's interested in finding out why the purple smoke came out of your computer. This would be a good net to ask on. And then the fifth week, if there is a fifth Monday, is the surprises net. If you told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. So on-air participation is encouraged. Then we have on Fridays the CERT City simulation at 8 o'clock. You learn about emergency communications via CERT trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5KRH. I'm sorry, KI5GRH is the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. CERT City, all are welcome. Saturday, of course, is the big night of nets from 7 to 8. Of course, is TechNet. From 9 until 10:30 is Skynet. And then from 10:30 until about midnight is the Afterglow Movie Net, which I'll tell you about here in just a moment. We have on the first and third Sundays the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, or MODA. That's when you get to find out about this club and what's been going on. And you're welcome to share with what's going on with you as well. So please come by to that net. All are welcome. Daily is the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net. That's every night at 6:30. At 6:30. You're welcome to check in if you'd like to learn more about formalized net or formalized traffic. That is the net that you would like to come to. And because it's a training net, you can make no mistakes. So come on by. If you're a new ham, this is also a very good net to cut your teeth and get to learn who some of the people are who are on this repeater. Now, here is tonight's Afterglow Movie Net information. Now listen up, everybody. David showed up for a job at the home of two professionals, astrophysicists by name. One was nicknamed Doc. It was obvious to David before anyone started talking there would be a job involving time travel, and this Doc doesn't have the money for a DeLorean. Instead, Doc called the Uber and asked if they could show up 30 minutes ago, just in case the Uber happened to be a time machine. David knew this wasn't going anywhere fast and decided he'd take that job working at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. It seemed somehow safer. So join us this evening at 10:30 p.m. for Escape 2120, which came out in 2020. It's 100 years earlier than where the story takes place. That's at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. All right, next up we have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, and I think Chaz could be the guy that can talk about that. So Chaz, why don't you go ahead and give us the lowdown on TAS.
Thank you, Tom. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be held on Friday, April the 28th. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held on Zoom. Featured speaker, I'm not sure of, and the topic, I'm not sure of. Oh well. Maybe we'll figure this out by next week. Now, the Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the TASS public observing sessions. Now, this would be the second Saturday. Stargazings are held at Frisco on the second Saturday. I don't think we're going to have somebody report from there because that would be a long hop to get on the net. But in case there is somebody at Frisco and a ham radio operator that would like to make a report, please come now with your call sign. I didn't think so. Well, you can check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5, JHA, back to our net control. Tom, it's all yours again.
All right, thank you, Chaz. Well, be quiet. Maybe Good Friday, everybody's, well, we'll find out. Next up is National Space Society events and activities. Bill, N5BB, he is checked in. Bill, you want to tell us about National Space Society?
Yes. Sorry for the delay. This is N5BB. Excuse me. I happen to be the membership director and member at large of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. We meet here in Irving. That's where I happen to live, but we meet in Irving on the second Sunday afternoon of every month. That means our April meeting is tomorrow afternoon, Easter Day. Our meeting starts at 3:30. The presentation starts at 4. The meeting tomorrow, the presentation is going to be about Artemis, which is the NASA Artemis 1. Artemis 1 was an unmanned, no humans on it, and went around the moon. Artemis 2, the crew was just selected, and all but one of them is a ham. And they will be going up and going around the moon, but not landing. And then Artemis 3 is planned to be a landing mission to land on the moon, the first humans on the moon since the mid-1970s. And anyway, so that's going to be the meeting topic for our meeting tomorrow. The big deal, though, is the International Space Development Conference. ISDC 2023 will be in Frisco, Texas, at the Embassy Suites, which is tied to the Frisco Convention Center, which has got huge rooms. and we will be there on the Memorial Day weekend of this year. So the exact dates are May the, hold on just a moment, I don't have this memorized, and I wasn't ready. I was a bad boy. I wasn't ready. I'm sorry. The dates are May the 25th through 28th of 2023 at Frisco. There is an early bird discount. So you get a discount, number one, if you're 65 or older. That's a significant discount. Or if you're a student. You also get a discount if you're a member of the National Space Society, the national group. And that's significant. You also get a discount if you register early. And that early date is no later than April the 15th, in a week. So if you want to go to the International Space Development Conference, it is to your advantage to register within the next week. I thought the meal price would not change until the time of the meeting, but I just received an email this afternoon saying that the meal prices were going to go up on April the 15th also. And the typical increase is about $15. These are, big dinners, formal dinners with big name speakers like Jared Isaacman or NASA astronauts or previous NASA administrators, things of that nature. So if you want to participate in the International Space Development Conference, it's best to get your tickets now. The website is isdc2023.nss.org. So this acronym I'm using is International Space Development Conference, ISDC, put on by the National Space Society. And the website again is ISDC2023. Website already. If anybody has any questions, they can reach me at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net or N5BB@ARRL.net. There's also a National Space Society North Texas Facebook page and a website. And the website is ntx.nss.org. That's ntx like North Texas .nss.org. Our meeting tomorrow will also be virtual. It'll be in person and virtual, so it'll also be a WebEx session. If you want to watch the meeting tomorrow afternoon starting at 4 p.m., you can do so by mailing me an email tonight. Don't wait till the last minute tomorrow. Mail it to me tonight and tell me you want to virtually participate in the meeting tomorrow afternoon for National Space Society. You can email me at n5bb@arrl.net. This is N5BB. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Bill. Does anybody need any fills or need any additional information? Please come with your call. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask for additional check-ins at this point. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Kilo India 5, Whiskey Whiskey Tango, Joe in Lancaster.
Okay, got the Joes checked in. I got KG5ZM&G, that's Joe in Arlington, and KI5WWT, Joe in Lancaster. Got you both. Thank you for checking in this evening. Okay, tonight's topic, I had to find something fast because I realized, tonight is my night to doing that. So I came up with and found an article, I forgot to credit the article, but it has How Will NASA Land Humans on the Moon in 2025. Not a super long article, but it's not too bad. This has to do with the Artemis 3. Artemis 3 is the third scheduled flight of the Artemis program, and it is the one that has put humans on the moon around 2025. Assuming, of course, that previous missions of the Artemis program go as planned. Like the uncrewed Artemis 1 and crewed Artemis 2, this mission aims to launch the gigantic Space Launch System SLS Mega Rocket and the Orion spacecraft. For landing on the moon, the crew will use SpaceX Starship, a system that the California company is developing right now for crewed human missions. The crew for the Artemis 3 has not yet been named, and we've only just recently got the Artemis crew named earlier this week. And the 2025 launch date is rather tentative. NASA successfully launched Artemis 1 on 1:47 Eastern Time on November 16th from Launch Complex 39B at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. NASA is awaiting results of both the Artemis 1 and 2 before giving the go-ahead for Artemis 3. Additionally, the agency will require meaningful progress on spacesuits and the human landing system for the moon landing to go ahead. Artemis 3's launch date is set for 2025 for now, after an initial target of 2024. NASA's readiness for Artemis 3 depends on three key things: the success of previous missions in development of its development of new spacesuits, and the availability of an unflown human landing system, or HLS, better known as SpaceX's Starship. Recently completed Artemis 1 will assess the readiness of SLS and Orion to carry humans. The major goals of Artemis 2, which is scheduled for 2024, will then be to fly 4 humans to the moon orbit and back. Artemis 2 will last a minimum of 8 days, but that could extend as long as 3 weeks. Beyond assessing the data collected from Artemis 1 and 2, NASA will also need to make sure its spacesuits are ready. The spacesuits were the first developed in-house by the agency, but it elected to pivot to commercial providers after NASA's Office of the Inspector General warned the agency-made spacesuits were causing an undue delay. The last item will be the readiness of the SpaceX Starship system. Starship has only performed a few tests in midair and has yet to fly on an orbital mission. SpaceX hopes to fly the orbital mission in 2020. Well, it says 2022, but actually we're in 2023 and we're still waiting. It may happen sometime this month, though I haven't heard really anything that would suggest so. So it may just slip to May. Getting Starship ready for the moon was also delayed due to a complaint and later lawsuit by Blue Origin, a competitor in the HLS contract by NASA. The lawsuit was resolved, but it delayed the implementation of HLS contract by several months. The Artemis 3 crew has not yet been publicly named. The agency has pledged the landing crew will include the first woman and the first person of color on the mission, as all of the Apollo human landing missions in the 50s and 70s had white men on board. In 2022, NASA opened eligibility for Artemis missions, a coalition of tens of agencies that are forming under the Artemis Accords, which are led by NASA. The Americans have promised Japan a seat on a future moon mission and possibly a seat on a landing mission. Japan and the United States came to that pact as part of a larger set of agreements on cybersecurity, 5G cellular networks, and other science and technology collaborations, the White House said at the time. The European Space Agency is also a major collaborator in the Artemis Accords, contributing a European space module, service module, I should say, to the NASA Orion spacecraft, as well as several elements to the Gateway space station. The less likely selection would be Canada, as the country already has an astronaut assigned to Artemis 2, in thanks to the country's Canadarm3 robotic technology contributions to Gateway. Artemis 3 will follow a similar mission profile to Artemis 2, including a launch from the Kennedy Space Center, a translunar injection to bring the astronauts to the moon, an orbiting mission, and a return to Earth for a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. The mission's major new goal beyond Artemis 2 will be to place 2 humans at the south pole of the moon in a zone that is rich with water ice dubbed Artemis Base Camp. The other 2 astronauts would remain aboard Orion in lunar orbit, and the landing area is not yet decided. Observations from numerous missions appear to confirm a great deal of water below the moon's surface, particularly in permanently shadowed craters that receive no sunlight. These craters may include hydrogen-rich deposits and water ice underneath the top of 3 feet or 1 meter of lunar regolith. Water is a necessity not only for human needs, but also for machinery and for growing plants on the surface. High-resolution maps from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter do provide a great deal of information about the water that is present, although investigators have said there is uncertainty about how pure the water is and exactly where it is located. Additionally, turning water into fuel is still being explored. A CubeSat selected to fly with Artemis 1 is investigating water electrolysis as a single example. So there you have it. That's what I got for you this evening on my presentation, Artemis 3 mission. Does anyone have any questions or wish to contribute to this discussion? Please come to your call now.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, update on Starship.
Excellent, KI5KWG. Cruz, what do you got for us?
KI5KWG. I believe it was Thursday Elon Musk tweeted, and I'm trying to quote here, I don't have it in front of me. He said Starship was stacked and ready to launch next week, pending FAA approval. So I believe that approval is expected between the 10th, is that tomorrow, and the 13th. So stay tuned. KI5KWG, back to net.
Okie dokie, thank you, Cruz. And knowing Elon Musk, he's always one to kind of do these things unannounced, but I have a feeling he's going to have to kind of give us some heads up on this, because he's going to have to track this thing around the globe, and there's going to be safety concerns and all those things. So somebody probably knows for sure whether it's launching during that time, or he's been given preliminary the go-ahead and people are getting ready. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay, well, next up is Chaz again, KF5JHA, and he has the segment called the Was Up. So, Chaz, what's up?
Why, thank you, Tom. Tom's also the slide changer if you're on the video feed. So, Tom, slide number 1. Yeah, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call the segment of Skynet What Is Up, because it's all about what's going on astronomically for the next couple of weeks. Slide Master, slide number 2. The full moon occurred on April the 5th, so the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. The third quarter moon will be held on April the 13th. On April the 15th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 367,968 kilometers. New moon is on April the 19th. On April the 27th will be the first quarter moon. On April the 28th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,299 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 3. On April the 10th is when a beautiful conjunction of the planet Venus and the open star cluster of the Pleiades, also known as M45, that happens in the west to northwestern evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 4. On April the 16th, there will be a conjunction of Saturn and the moon in the eastern morning sky. And Slide Master, slide number 5. The very next morning on April the 17th, there will be a conjunction of the planet Neptune and the moon in the eastern morning sky. You'll need to have a telescope to see Neptune. Slide Master, slide number 6. On April the 20th, there's a penumbral lunar eclipse, but it's not visible to us here in North America. You have to be on the other side of the world to see that. Slide Master, slide number 7. The meteor shower, the Leonid meteor shower, is at its peak on the night of April 21st, 22nd, with a maximum of 18 to up to 90 meteors per hour. To get more details about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at imo.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. And Slide Master, slide number 8, please. There is a conjunction on April the 21st of Neptune, Mercury, and the Moon in the west-northwestern evening sky. And the very next evening, Slide Master, slide number 9, on April the 22nd, the planet Venus and the Moon are in conjunction in the west-northwestern evening sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 10, please. Well, I've gotten some more advanced information. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting is going to be held on Friday, April the 28th. The meeting is held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held on Zoom. The featured speaker is Lonnie Weegee. He's a representative of Meade, and I'm not sure about his topic, but at least now I know who the speaker is going to be. If you'd like to get more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, their meetings and public observing sessions, go to their website, texasastro.org. Now, slide number 11. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information, or maybe you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill.
Kilo India 5, Juliet Charlie Mike.
Juliet Charlie Mike, please come now with your question.
Yes, to refer back to the Artemis mission, Artemis 2. I've been looking online and haven't been able to find if any of them are licensed hands and whether or not any ham radio gear will be on board. I was wondering if anyone in the group might know and be able to enlighten me. KI5GCM, back to net.
That's a great question. Tom, I'm going to refer this back to you. Do you know? Or maybe someone else knows.
Chaz, I do not. Now, I believe, and I'm going by memory here, I could be wrong, but I seem to recall there was some discussion about that, like hams, but I do not know. I do not know. I know there's been some discussion, but does anyone else have any information on that? Please come with your call. I think we're all stumped. Go ahead, Chaz. You may continue.
Well, thank you, Tom. I was just about at the end anyway. Master slide number 12. So as the moon wanes, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for a world that's the only one where humans live, at least right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA, Backdoor Net Control. It's all yours, Tom, KE5ICX.
All right, very good. Thank you, Chaz, and thank you for the question. We'll see. I'll bet you people are Googling furiously to find out if there'll be any radio equipment on board for him or any other projects that might be looking at telemetry and that. I just have a feeling that's going to be happening. All right, this is KE5ICX and Net Control for tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and ask if there's any additional check-ins at this point. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo India 5, Juliet Charlie Mike asked a question but never checked in. This is Thomas in.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I thought maybe I just omitted you and I didn't know. So KI5JCM, Thomas, and where'd you say you were at?
I am in Euless, Texas, in the heart of the Metroplex.
All right, excellent. Well, we're glad you're here, Thomas. I got you in Euless, KI5JCM. We're glad to have you here. We're here every Saturday night. We got a few new people this evening, too, which is kind of fun. We're here every Saturday night at 9 o'clock until 10:30 or thereabouts. We may end a little early tonight. I'm not sure. It's kind of a light crowd, which is a surprise. We get tons and tons of people, but they may still show up. Who knows? Okay. Next up is space exploration and space history. And Kelly, K5KTX, you have it for this evening. So please go ahead. Thank you for doing this segment.
Tom, this is K5KTX. Well, we've been talking about it already, but let's get to the details. NASA and the Canadian Space Agency, or CSA, announced the 4 astronauts who will venture around the moon on Artemis 2, the first crewed mission on NASA's path to establishing a long-term presence at the moon for science and exploration through Artemis. The agencies revealed the crew members Monday during an event at Ellington Field near NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. 3 of the 4 crew members are amateur radio operators. The crew assignments are as follows. And by the way, a few weeks ago I predicted all 4 of these, so I don't know what I win, but all right, so we have Commander Reed Wiseman, KF5LKT, Pilot Victor Glover, KI5BKC, Mission Specialist 1, Christina Hammett-Cook, and Mission Specialist 2, Jeremy Hansen, KF5LKU from Canada. Cook had planned to study and take her amateur license exam in 2019, but her flight was suddenly rescheduled 6 months earlier than originally planned, so she had to immediately begin preparing for her flight instead of studying. Now, just a moment ago, I did do a little bit of a search, and it looks like the ARIS program, you may be familiar with that, that's amateur radio on the International Space Station. They are looking to install a ham radio facility on Gateway, which is the orbiting outpost that will be going around the moon during the Artemis missions. But my guess is that there will not be any ham radio equipment on this Artemis 2 mission. It's a short mission, and I'm sure they will be cram-packed busy with other things. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, that they will not be able to just do ham radio during this mission. Will work as a team to execute an ambitious set of demonstrations during the flight test. The approximately 10-day Artemis 2 flight will launch on the agency's powerful space system rocket, prove the Orion spacecraft's life support systems and validate the capabilities and techniques needed for humans to live and work in deep space. The flight, set to build upon the successful uncrewed Artemis 1 mission completed in December, will set the stage for the first woman and the first person of color on the moon through the Artemis program, paving the way for future long-term human exploration missions to the moon and eventually to Mars. For the first time in more than 50 years, these individuals, the Artemis crew, will be the first humans to fly to the vicinity of the moon. Will be Wiseman's second trip into space, serving previously as a flight engineer aboard the International Space Station for Expedition 41 from May through November of 2014. Wiseman has logged more than 165 days in space, including almost 13 hours as lead spacewalker during 2 trips outside the orbital complex. Prior to his assignment, Wiseman served as chief of the astronaut office from December 2020 until November 2022. The mission will be Glover's second spaceflight, serving previously as pilot on NASA's SpaceX Crew 1, which landed May 2nd, 2021, after 168 days in space. As a flight engineer aboard the space station for Expedition 64, he contributed to scientific investigations, technology demonstrations, and participated in 4 spacewalks. Will also be making her second flight into space on the Artemis 2 mission. She served as flight engineer aboard the space station for Expeditions 59, 60, and 61. Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 days in space and participated in the first all-female spacewalks. Representing Canada, Hansen is making his first flight to space. A colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces and former fighter pilot, Hansen has served as Capcom in NASA's Mission Control Center at Johnson, and in 2017 became the first Canadian to be entrusted with leading a NASA astronaut class, leading the training of astronaut candidates from the United States and Canada. Administrator Bill Nelson said, NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Hammett-Cook, and CSA astronaut Jeremy Hansen each has their own story, but together they represent our creed, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Together we are ushering in a new era of exploration for a new generation of star sailors and dreamers, the Artemis generation. Moving on to space history for this past week, starting with April the 2nd, back in 1958, President Eisenhower proposed the creation of what is now NASA in an article of draft legislation sent to Congress. He originally proposed to establish a National Aeronautics and Space Agency built around the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, or NACA. The word agency was changed to administration at the behest of Eileen Galloway, who worked for the Congressional Research Service. She believed that an administration with an administrator would have more power than a mere agency with a director. After hearings that spring, the legislation was passed, and Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act into law on July 29, 1958. NASA began formal operations October 1st, 1958. So on April the 2nd, back in 1968, the film 2001, A Space Odyssey, premiered over 50 years ago. It was produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick with a screenplay by Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke. The film's premise of an extensive space infrastructure, including a large orbiting space station staffed by international crew members with regular trips to a lunar base, was visionary and highly optimistic at a time of great uncertainty. But some of the technological advances imagined have since come to pass. April the 3rd, 1966, Luna 10 entered lunar orbit and became the first human-made object to orbit the moon or any celestial body beyond Earth. The Soviet probe launched on March 31st following the failure of a mission earlier that month which had never left Earth orbit. During operation over the course of 56 days, Luna 10 gathered data on the moon's magnetic field, its radiation belts, cosmic radiation, and micrometeoroid density. Tracking data showed that the spacecraft's orbit was being distorted by irregularities in the moon's gravitational field, provided that first evidence that the moon's internal composition wasn't uniform. Last contact was made on May 30th, 1966. On April the 5th, 1973, Pioneer 11 launched to study the asteroid belt, the environment around Jupiter and Saturn, solar winds, and cosmic rays. It was the first probe to encounter Saturn, the second to fly through the asteroid belt, and the second to fly by Jupiter. Later, Pioneer 11 became the second of 5 artificial objects to achieve an escape velocity, allowing it to leave the solar system. Due to power constraints and the vast distance to the probe, the last routine contact with the spacecraft was on September 30th, 1995, and the last good engineering data was received on November 24th, 1995. Also on April the 5th, back in 1991, launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis STS-37 mission, the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory was a space telescope that made observations from Earth orbit for the next 9 years. It featured 4 main telescopes and 1 spacecraft, covering X-rays and gamma rays, including various specialized sub-instruments and detectors. Named for the Nobel Prize winner Arthur Hawley Compton, the telescope was a part of NASA's Great Observatory series, along with the Hubble Space Telescope, Chandra X-ray Observatory, and Spitzer Space Telescope. It was the second to be launched following the Hubble Space Telescope. The mission ended on June 4th, 2000. April the 7th, 2001, the Mars Odyssey spacecraft launched. It entered orbit around Mars on October 24th, 2001, and has been working there ever since. The primary science mission of Odyssey was to map the distribution of a variety of chemicals and minerals on the Martian surface. Named in tribute to Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey, Mars Odyssey has proved an essential tool for Mars exploration, and since 2010 has held the record for the longest surviving active spacecraft at Mars. With the planned science mission of Odyssey completed in August of 2004, the orbiter's continuing mission has included serving as a communication relay for other spacecraft, most notably the rovers on the Martian surface. Odyssey also helped analyze potential landing sites for the Mars exploration rovers Spirit and Opportunity, NASA's Phoenix mission, and the Curiosity Mars Science Laboratory. On April the 8th, 1964, Gemini 1, the first uncrewed test flight of the Gemini spacecraft, launched. The primary goals were to test the Titan II launch vehicle, the structural integrity of the Gemini spacecraft, and the compatibility between the launch vehicle and spacecraft. The spacecraft was tracked until it re-entered the atmosphere and disintegrated on the 64th orbital pass over the southern Atlantic on April the 12th. Recovery of the Gemini spacecraft was not an objective of the mission. In fact, holes were drilled through its heat shield to assure that it did not survive re-entry into the atmosphere. And finally, we have a few astronaut birthdays for this past week. Beginning on April the 3rd, 1926, Gus Grissom, who was part of the Mercury Redstone 4, Gemini 3, and unfortunately he was lost in the fire on Apollo 1. April the 5th, 1949, Judith Resnick, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-41D, and she was part of the unfortunate Challenger Space Shuttle mission that exploded, STS-51L. And also on April the 5th, 1950, Franklin Chang Diaz, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-61C, 34, 46, 60, 75, 91, and 111. And that's all I've got for tonight, Tom. This is K5KTX. Back to you.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Kelly. Appreciate that. This is a very interesting report this week. Thank you once again. Okay, this is KE5ICX. And the net control tonight, Skynet. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Philip K5KOB. I think he was over in Crandall. He's over on the digital platform over there. He says he's outside cooking. Well, beautiful weather out, so why not, right? Okay, next up is we bring back Chaz. Chaz, turn around, come back. We need you now. So you're next on Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week. So Chaz, KF5JHA, the net is yours again.
Thank you, Tom. This is KF5JHA. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen over Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week this week is Leo, the lion, and Leo Minor, the small lion. Leo is one of the zodiac constellations and is the 12th largest constellation in the sky, occupying an area of 947 square degrees. Leo is one of the oldest constellations in the sky. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Mesopotamians had a constellation similar to Leo as early as the year 4000 BC. The Persians knew the constellation as Sheer or Seer. Babylonians called it the Great Lion. The Greeks associated the lion with the Nemean lion, the beast killed by Hercules during the first of his 12 labors. The lion was placed among the constellations because it was the king of the beasts. The sky, the 6 bright stars in the constellation forming the sickle of the Leo, the lion, represents the lion's head. Slide Master, slide number 14. What everyone's been waiting for, the jokes of the week. What kind of animals and how many do you need to make a square? And JJ's not over on Echolink to answer these questions, so I guess I'll have to just go ahead and answer them. What kind of animals and how many do you need to make a square? 4 lions. Get it? Okay. What do you call a lion with chickenpox? A dotted lion. What do you call a lion wearing a stylish hat? A dandelion. What's a lion running a copy machine called? Well, of course, a copycat. How do we know lions are religious? Because they pray frequently and they pray as a family. What street do lions live on? Of course, Main Street. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, give me the slide number 15, please. To find Leo in the sky, let us start at something familiar, Orion. Find Orion in the southwestern. Draw a line from right to left from Bellatrix to Betelgeuse and keep on going. Should run into the brightest star in Canis Minor, Procyon. Keep on drawing the line past Procyon and you should run into the brightest star in Leo called Regulus. Slide Master, slide number 16. Regulus means the little king. Robert Burnham notes in his Burnham Celestial Handbook that Regulus has been almost universally associated with the ancient cultures of royalty and the kingly power. Regulus is a multi-star system. Regulus B and C are easily observable in almost any instrument as a single star, but what appears as a single star can be split with large telescopes with good seeing. Regulus itself is a B-type star, or a blue-white star. Regulus lies only half a degree from the ecliptic, so it is fairly common that the moon pass very near it, and from time to time the moon will occult Regulus. Now, let me see if I can see a show of hands out there. Is there anyone who was alive in July 7th in 1959? If so, how old were you? And that day, the planet Venus occulted the star Regulus, which is an extremely rare event. Did anyone out there observe it? Maybe not. Al-Shabaab, Gamma Leonis, is derived from the Arabic phrase which means the lion's mane. It's an interesting double star with the primary having an orange-red color, and the companion is yellow-green, which makes it a nice color contrast. Just 2 degrees to the northwest of Gamma Leonis is the radiant of the famous Leonid meteor shower, which peaks on November 17th each year, originating from the comet 55P Tempel-Tuttle. Slide Master, slide number 17. The Leo triplet, or the Leo trio, M65, 66, and NGC 3628, these 3 galaxies are so close together it's easy to fit them all in the same low-powered field of view. I did that a couple weeks ago during my Messier marathon from Big Bend. They can be observed in a 3-inch telescope, although I used a 10-inch light bridge lead to do that. They look like small, faint fuzzballs with slightly different shapes. An 8-inch telescope shows the 3 galaxies pretty well. Photographs show a warp in the NGC 3628 dust lanes and the asymmetry spiral structures M66, which contributes to their listings in the ARP Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies. Slide number 18, please. M105 is an elliptical galaxy. Dev Hutchinson writes that in his Celestron 8 essentially looks like a big fuzzy cotton ball. In his book, The Messier Object, Stephen James O'Meara writes that M105 is perhaps the purest object in the Messier catalog, in that its slightly oval disk shows the least amount of imperfection. M105 is 2 nearby but fainter companions, NGC 3384 and NGC 3389. It can easily fit in the same field of view. It also has 2 slightly more distant companions that are Messier objects, M95 and M96, which is the next slide. Slide number 19, M95 and M96. Dave Hutchinson writes about them. Are 2 beautiful spiral galaxies can be seen in the same field of view using an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain. With a wide field of view and at 20 power, you would be able to see M105 as well as M95 and 96, all in the same field of view. M95 is a barred spiral galaxy, and at higher power, its central bar is visible. M96 is classified as a normal spiral galaxy. Some structure is visible with higher magnification. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. Let's talk about Leo Minor. Leo Minor is a small, faint constellation in the northern sky with only 1 star brighter than 4th magnitude. The constellation name means smaller lion in Latin, so Leo Minor was created in 1687 from 18 stars between the large constellations of Leo and Ursa Major. It has no myths associated with it. Leo Minor is the 64th constellation in size, occupying only an area of 232 square degrees. Slide master, slide number 21. Beta Leonis Minoris is the only star in Leo Minor that has a Greek letter designation. It is the second brightest star on the constellation. Beta Leonis Minoris is a binary star. Components have stellar designations of G83 and an F84, which means they are a yellow subgiant and yellow-white subgiant. The brighter star is 36 times more luminous than the Sun and is about twice the mass. It has 7.8 times the Sun's radius. Compared, the companion is 5.8 times more luminous than the Sun, has 1.35 solar masses, about twice the solar radius. The stars have apparent magnitudes of 4.4 and 6.12 and are approximately 146 light years distance from our Sun. Slide master, slide number 22. Hades or Hani's Bulwarp is a it's a quasar ionization echo. It's a rare type of astronomical object that was considered to be unidentified astronomical object at the time of its discovery. It was first spotted by Hanny van Arkel, a Dutch school teacher, in 2007. She discovered the object while taking part in the project called Galaxy Zoo as an amateur volunteer. The object's name, Hani's Bulwarp, means Hani's object in Dutch. The astronomers found that it is only visible part of a 300 light-year long gaseous streamer stretching around the galaxy IC 2497. The greenish bulwarp is visible because a searchlight beam of light from the galaxy's core illuminates it. This beam comes from a quasar, a bright, energetic object that is powered by a black hole at the center of the galaxy. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 23. By the way, if you want to participate in Galaxy Zoo, you can do that too. Just search Galaxy Zoo. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Leo, the Lion, and Leo Minor, the Small Lion. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 75 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide number 24, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week, Leo the Lion, and Leo Minor, the Small Lion. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Wall for their research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and steal for every Skynet. Also, at times, use the website constellation-guide.com for information. And I forgot to put in what next week's constellation will be. This is KF5JHA, sending it back to our net control. Tom, it's all yours. 73, everyone.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and I know you wouldn't lie in about any of this, so very good. Okay, this is KE5ICX Net Control by Skynet. I'll go ahead and ask for additional check-ins at this point. If you want to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
This is Alpha Golf 9er Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
And we pick up two more with usual suspects have checked in. I got KB5SOK, that's Sean over in Fort Worth, and AG9SG, Antonio in Dallas. Got you both checked in. All right, next up is space launches from week, so there are a few here. I've got a few of them here. We got Falcon 9 Transporter 7 launch. That's April 10th, 11th, overnight. SLC-4E from Vandenberg Space Force Base. This will be a Transporter 7 mission, a rideshare flight with a sun-synchronous orbit with numerous small microsatellites and nanosatellites for commercial and government customers. The Falcon 9's first stage booster returned to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg. April 13th, we got an Ariane 5 launch. This will be from Guyana Space Center in French Guyana on ELA-3. The Ariane 5 ECA rocket, designated VA-260, will launch the European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer mission, or JUICE. The JUICE spacecraft, built by Airbus, will make detailed observations of the giant gas planet and its three large ocean-bearing moons, Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa, with a suite of remote sensing, geophysical, and in-situ instruments. JUICE will enter orbit around Jupiter in July of 2031. This will mark the commencement launch of Europe's Ariane 5 rocket. Then we have, sometime in April, will be launched from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, India, the Telos 2. This is India's Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, or PSLV, will launch the two satellites in Singapore. Helios 2 was built by Singapore ST Electronics and carries an all-weather synthetic aperture radar Earth observation payload. We have coming up, and was mentioned earlier, April 17th. This is true. It actually got a date. I have written down here, it says April 17th Starship orbital test launch. This is from Starbase at Boca Chica Beach, Texas. The Super Heavy and Starship launch vehicle will launch on its first orbital test flight. The mission will attempt to travel around the world for nearly one full orbit, resulting in a re-entry and splashdown of the Starship near Hawaii. Now, I pull this stuff up every week. This is the first time I've seen an actual date, so maybe this is correct. April 17th is what it says here. April 18th, we have a Falcon Heavy launch of Viasat-3 Americas. This is from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The Heavy rocket will launch the Viasat-3 Americas broadband communications satellite. Viasat-3 Americas is the first of at least 3 new generation fully built geostationary satellites for Viasat. A small communications satellite named Arcturus will launch as a secondary payload with constraints. On April 19th, we have another Falcon 9 launch, Starlink 6-2. This is from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of second-generation Starlink V2 mini internet satellites. Falcon 9's first stage will land as drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Falcon 9 launch in April to be determined will be Worldview Legion 1 and 2. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Falcon 9 will launch a first pair of Worldview Legion Earth observation satellites for Maxar Technologies. Maxar plans to deploy 6 commercial Worldview Legion high-resolution remote sensing satellites into a mix of sun-synchronous and mid-inclination orbits on 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. The first stage of the Falcon 9 will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Also have Starlink 5-9 from SLC-40. We have one here, the Delta IV Heavy at Roll 68. This will launch from SLC-37C at Cape Canaveral. A United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy will launch a classified spy satellite cargo for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The largest of the Delta IV family, the Heavy version features 3 common booster cores mounted together to form a triple-body rocket. This is an actual flight of the Delta IV rocket. And I'm just going to read 2 more of these. I guess there's so many of these things, sometimes I don't realize how many I've actually copied out of the website here, but we got April 28th, Falcon 903B M-Power 3 and 4 launch. This will be SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a second pair of OB-3 M-Power broadband internet satellites for medium Earth orbit for SES of Luxembourg. The satellites, built by Boeing, will provide internet services over most of the populated world, building on SES's O3B network. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. And finally, I can give this one. Oh, more Starlinks, everybody. This one's for April, SLC-40, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. It'll be another batch of Starlink V2 mini internet satellites with the drone first stage landing on a drone ship. So, golly, folks, it's practically every day something is launching. I got more. But I'm not going to talk about them at this point. Okay. We are now 10:18. Let me see what we're going to do next. I'm going to go ahead and ask for additional check-ins at this point. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none. What I'm going to do is kind of debating what to do next. Brenda is WB5OZL is at a party this evening. She said she'd probably do that, but I think she's having too much fun. So I'm going to go ahead and read her article this evening. This comes from Science News, and it's called Twinkling Stars Fuel Interstellar Dust. You've probably heard of the James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, which has been in the news lately. It's famous for being the largest and most sensitive space telescope designed to observe infrared light. But long before JWST took to the skies, two other IR space telescopes, Akari and WISE, have been surveying cosmos, both of which have ended their initial missions, but produced so much valuable data that astronomers are still finding new discoveries with it. The latest finding from that data by doctoral student Kengo Takibama from the University of Tokyo's Institute of Astronomy and his team could have implications for the study of the origins of life itself. We study stars and the IR light from them in a key source of information that helps us unlock their secrets. Until recently, most IR data was from very short period surveys due to the lack of advanced dedicated platforms, but missions like Akari and WISE have allowed us to take longer period surveys of these things. This means that we can see how things might change over greater time periods and what these changes might imply. Lately, we've turned our attention to a certain class of star known as asymptotic giant branch stars. That's a new one on me, which are interesting because they are the main producers of interstellar dust. This interstellar dust is not the same stuff that accumulates on your floor when you forget to vacuum for a few days. It's the name given to heavy elements that disperse from stars and lead to the formation of solid objects, including planets. Although it's long been known that the AGBs, and especially so-called dusty AGBs, are the main producers of dust, it's not known what the main drivers of dust production are and where we should be looking to find this out. Our latest study has pointed us in the right direction, said Tachibana. Thanks to longer period IR observations, we have found that the life of dusty AGBs varies with periods longer than several hundred days. We also found that the spherical shells of dust produced by and then ejected by these stars have concentrations of dust that vary in step with the star's changes in luminosity. Of the 169 dusty AGBs surveyed, no matter their variability period, the concentrations of dust around them would coincide. So we're certain these are connected. Finding a connection between the concentration of dust and variability of star brightness is just the first step in this investigation, however. Now the team wishes to explore the possible physical mechanisms behind the production of dust. For this, they intend to monitor various AGB stars for many years continuously. The University of Tokyo is nearing completion of a large ground-based telescope project. The University of Tokyo's Atacama Observatory in Chile, which will be dedicated to making infrared observations. And this is from Science Daily, dated April 6, 2023. Okay, well, let me go through. It looks like I've got enough time to go ahead and give the last segment, which is satellite passages over the next couple of days. This information comes from heavenabove.com. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of them. I've got a few of those. The International Space Station is a no-show this week, so I've got nothing for them. Tiangong, the Chinese space station, I do have a few things for you on that. I'll bring that up. So I have two passes that look pretty promising for Tiangong. We have one on April 9th. It will be minus 2.3 magnitude at 5:39 in the morning. It'll be at 71 degrees, so it'll come out of shadow midway over the sky on the south-southwest, reaches its highest point at 78 degrees. At 5:39, it'll fall to the east-northeast at 5:42. Then on April 10th, there are two passes. The better of the two is the one at 6:11 at minus 1.0 magnitude. It'll be out of the west-northwest. It'll reach its highest point at 6:13:29 at 33 degrees, and it'll fall to the northeast at 6:16. Next up is the ever-reliable Envisat. Let me go ahead and bring that up. And we have April 9th has good pass, 3.1 magnitude, 5:15 in the morning out of the north-northeast, of course. These are north-south polar orbit. 5:20, it'll reach its highest point at 75 degrees, and it'll fall to the south at 5:24. On April 11th, there is a decent pass, 3.0 magnitude, 5:40 a.m. Out of the north, it'll reach its highest point at 50 degrees at 5:45, and will fall at 5:49 to the south-southwest. Finally, on April 12th, we have one. This is a 3.6 magnitude at 5:03 a.m. out of the north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 55 degrees at 5:08, so it'll fall to the south at 5:11. I'll do one more here. April 15th, we have one. This one is, this one's kind of a 3.4 magnitude at 5:53 out of the north. It'll reach its highest point at 44 degrees at 5:57, and it'll fall to the southwest at 6:02 to the southwest. And I am KE5ICX Net Control for device Skynet. Okay, well, we do have a couple of minutes left over. I will take additional check-ins, and if anybody has any questions, please come to your call. Oh, you're all so quiet out there. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll go ahead and close it down. Tonight we had 20 check-ins and participating on the air. Thank you for all who checked in this evening. We hope to join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration, because on this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, please contact any of the net controls or send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to the club website, w5fc.org, as inclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:27 local time. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. We will be back in about 5 minutes to discuss tonight's movie, which is Escape 2120. Just 5 minutes from now. So go get your refreshments, do what you need to do, and come back and we'll discuss this unusual movie. This is KE5ICS. I'm clear for now.
normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Well, we're down to the final net this evening. This one is Theatrical Movie Net, where we watch the fine movie and we come back, and if we've survived watching the film, we discuss that film. And typically, when we discuss that film, it includes the plot. Did you like the plot, the storyline? Followed by characterization, what do we like about the characters and the acting, and then third, technical aspects of the film, which includes how it was filmed, sound, video, music, that sort of thing, and then finally anything we did not match or we did not manage to discuss in the earlier parts of the net. This net usually runs about 90 minutes, surprisingly, and we've had movies that are only an hour long, and we still end up talking about them for 90 minutes. Escape 2120 is tonight's movie that was actually came out in 2020. It's a low-budget, I don't know if you call it an art house film or not, but I did find Wiki doesn't have anything on it. That's how small this film is. But I do have a review and discussion summary by a guy named Hal Peterson, who wrote up something on it. So I'm going to read this actually for the first time, so be aware I may say something kind of strange about this film. So I'll go through the plot, and then after that, we'll go ahead and take check-ins, and you can be a part of this. So this is what he says. As Escape 2120 begins, you see a couple of flashes from a nightmare scene of a car accident, and an alarm goes off, and we meet the main character of the film, David, played by Edward Pritchard, waking up. Quickly, he is up, dressed, and heading out the door of a rooming house where he lives. But before he can leave, he's called up on the carpet by a supervisor, Miss Winthrop, who pointedly asks David if he's gotten a job yet. David responds negative. Miss Winthrop reminds him that he has promised to take care of that by Monday, and that he is not carrying his weight. David says that he will, and he was promising an opportunity was just ahead. We gradually learn that David is an older teenager, apparently without any other family, who was orphaned when his parents were killed in a car accident a couple of years earlier, leaving his life in turmoil. And the reason why he's living by himself in a subsidized rooming house. There's sadness in his eyes. He seems to be pretty much a loner as he walks through the Midwestern city environment in his morning appointment. On the surface, David's polite, reserved, who acts and dresses like any normal teenager. One thing that makes him stick out in the crowd is his pair of red high-top chucks. He's always wearing something that is constantly emphasized in the cinematography, so there's some comments there. Oh, and I haven't identified, I'm KE5ICX. David's morning appointment for the job turns out to be with an elderly professional couple, Doc and Sally, who enthusiastically welcome David to their apartment and tell him that he is the top candidate for the job they're offering. And the actual job is nothing like Edward's ever heard of. Doc is an astrophysicist who has developed a method of time travel using suspended animation. They describe how it works with David in a series of experiments that gradually expand the timeline and is traveled by an occupant of the travel box, with the ultimate goal of sending himself off into the future. David's role is to assist with each experiment as it's tried in case something is wrong. Additionally, David will be given an entire estate and an executor, which turns out to be a small fortune. Gradually, the viewer will figure out that David was chosen for this opportunity because he's very much like Doc and Sally, who don't have any other family. Finally, the day arrives for Doc and Sally's departure from the present day. David drives them to the pet mausoleum where they will start their journey from, and a logical backup should anything go wrong. Everything seems to work correctly. Now David is once again alone. At first, David has fun with the estate, paying off his debt and moving into Doc and Sally's apartment and donating a large sum of money to charity for children. Gradually, he becomes obsessed with the idea of using Doc's theory to travel into the future himself, especially when he finds a prototype small machine that completes the process among the same family or friend issues to deal with. So why not? David decides to send himself 100 years into the future, but beyond that, he has no plan. What are people like in 2220? How do they dress? How do they eat? And how was society evolved over 100 years? Will it be easy or difficult to make new friends? These are all issues David must deal with once he's made the journey. And as always, in time travel stories, there are complications when someone from a different time-space continuum is introduced into another era. This is where the film becomes challenging to deal with as David natively charges into the 21st century in a t-shirt, Levi's, and a pair of red and white top chucks. He's able to meet a beautiful girl, Aaliyah, who he is attracted to and looks after him, but discovers that everyone wears the same brown camouflage clothing and sandals, prefers to live simple and unsophisticated lives, and runs into an Orwellian brotherhood who considers him to be the devil's child. How David is able to deal with these and other elements makes him up the balance of the story. And it says here, I'll just finish it off. Escape 2120 is made by an independent screenwriter and director Brian K. Bennett. Full budget and unknown actors in the lead roles, storyline and how it's presented become key. It's always difficult with time travel stories because even simple theoretical concepts are difficult to portray on screen. And it usually takes a couple of views to understand the complete story, especially when dealing with characters coming in and out of different time periods. And he goes into some of the details which we will be discussing. So, I'm going to go ahead and start it up. I'm going to go ahead and ask for check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see Escape 2120? And it is not a requirement that you have seen the movie to check in. We will find things for you to talk about. The topic is time travel. We will ask you about time travel, more than likely. So, and when I say we, I mean me. So if you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see Escape 2120?
Kilo India 5, Sierra X-Ray Echo, Brandon, and yes, I did see the movie.
Hey, Al, can I get a radio check?
I doubled with somebody. This is Kilo India 5, Sierra X-Ray Echo, Brandon, and I did see the movie.
All right, thank you, Brandon. I got KI5SXE. You did see the film, and there was another breaking station. Go ahead. Okay, hearing that, I'll go ahead and continue check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie assignment, Escape 2120?
KE6QAL, can I get a radio check?
Okay, I've got a KE6QAL. You're asking for a radio check. Radio sounds fine. There's a little bit of noise, maybe 10% noise on there. That's about it. Okay, well, that was interesting. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Bravo 9, Star Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this film.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas, I've seen about half of it.
Okay, well, let's see. We get KB9SOK, Sean over in Fort Worth. Yep, he saw it. And Tony NT5TM, even running at double speed, if he could do that, he still only saw half the film. But that's okay, Tony. We'll ask you about the good half that you saw. Anyone else?
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen, and yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo India India 5 Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise. I saw all but the last 15 minutes of the film.
Okay, very good. Let's see here. I think I acknowledged, I didn't put my little marker on here, but I think I'll mention Tony again if I didn't. NT5TM, Tony, Dallas, he saw most of it. Oh, that's right, I did mention he acknowledged him already. Next is Alan, NG5Y. He's here, and yes, he saw the movie. And then Cruz, KF5KWG. He saw everything except for the last 15 minutes. The exciting cars chase scene at the end, you missed. It was almost as good as Bullet. Anyone else want to check in? Please come down. Okie dokie. We'll come back later. I will ask for multiple check-ins later on. So if you feel brave or you are wondering what this movie is about and whether you should discuss it, even if you haven't seen it or if you have seen it, you can contemplate that in the anonymous, without anybody knowing. Okay, let's start with Brandon, KI5SXE. Welcome, Brandon. We're glad you're here. You get the luxury of being the first person to discuss the plot. What did you think about it? Was it good? Did it make any sense? The person who wrote up the review on Escape 2120 thought that we would have some trouble with this film. Did you? And how did that work as far as the plot is concerned? From KD5ICX.
You know, I thought it was some pretty interesting principles of, time travel, space-time continuum, and it got me on the body switch. That was pretty interesting. It made sense, I guess. I mean, there was a lot of interesting components to the plot, so I don't know if I'd call them plot twists, but I would say that they were definitely plot spikes or of some sort. I did enjoy the movie overall. I thought that there was a little bit of underdevelopment in the love story, but spoiler, it kind of turned out to be a love story when it was all said and done. So it was a little mushy, but that's okay. I'll leave some things to say about it for other folks, but that's kind of my flavor of it right there. KI5, SXE, back to you.
All right, Brandon, not too bad, not too shabby. Yeah, I would give it, it was better than Queen Kong, which we saw a few weeks ago, and definitely better than The Creeping Terror, one of our all-time terrible movies. So it actually fits in somewhere else between good and bad. Good, evil, something like that. I don't know, I think there was a movie title of that. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie, Escape 2120.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, this movie, yeah, I would agree. It does fall somewhere in between good and bad. Initially, the pacing I felt was borderline painfully slow. This would have almost been one to do at 1.5 speed. I resisted, but it took a lot to resist it because it was very slow paced. And I do feel it wasn't, I don't think, the hardest to follow, but I felt that there was a lot of plot holes with this one. Because, yeah, it was a time travel movie, sort of. It was more of they were just freezing you in time and allowing time to pass more than so much actually traveling through it, which kind of what led to his first major issue later on in the film. Initially, it seemed like it would be a very simple case where all at once at the very end, they decided they could, only one time only, you can go backwards in time. Now, how a device that freezes you can all at once take you reverse in time was where, for me, where they majorly screwed it up. And then at that point, they made the comment that, only one person could go forward, one could go back, they had to trade places, but then all at once, he goes back in time, and then they're all there, then they all move forward again. So they broke a lot of their own rules right at the end that they spent so long explaining at the beginning. So for me, that was probably the major pitfall of this movie. And I'm not sure that a second viewing would help, but that was just, they just kind of totally glanced over that because they needed some way for him to go back in time and undo the whole myth that some terrible thing was coming. And so yeah, that was kind of the first major plot flaw. Then the second one is, they basically, somehow or another they knew that he was going to follow because they were looking for him. So, so like, how did they know this? Now, this was their plan all along, and why they picked him out, which is what my theory is on this, is that they thought that they picked him out because they knew that he'd be lonely, and at some point they left the prototype device with him so that way he could follow them, but then they didn't bother to fix the time drift that they tested early on in the show, which they kept making a point of saying that the prototype had a time drift issue. But they ended up living in that one, so he ended up going 800 years in the future. So that, in a way, that kind of doesn't make sense, because if they really thought he was going to follow, they thought they would have fixed that. So that's a little strange. And why did they even make up this wild story about he was coming and, and it could be dangerous and, and cause all that? Why did they even create this story? Ultimately had to go back and fix that, so there was no myth about him, so they wouldn't be followed. So yeah, there's definitely some plot holes with this. They never really explained the Brotherhood, where they came from, what they were about, why they were, they claimed that their society was basically crime-free, but obviously these Brotherhoods seem to be pretty violent people, willing to do whatever it takes, but didn't seem to be particularly all that knowledgeable or bright. So yeah, there is definitely some plot holes in this thing, and it's a slow pacing. It was a little painful to watch, but by far it's way better than the Queen Kong or a few of the others that we've had that have been in that range. But for a super low budget film, I gotta say it's probably okay. But anyway, yeah, it's one of them time travel movies that once again I feel they didn't really fully think through. But anyway, back to net KB9SOK.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sean. And yeah, I took some notes on what you said. I agree with you on many of those different counts. I will add to that in a few minutes. Next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony only saw the good parts of the film. He only saw about half of it. So Tony, what did you think of the film?
I don't know. I feel like it's about 4 in the morning. I have stayed up way too long, and I'm watching old movies on some channel, and this came on. And it's very slow. It's very slow. From the part I've seen, if they were to show something like he should have developed a relationship with this old couple of experimental time travelers, they could have perhaps had a few good scenes instead of a lot of long, boring scenes of grabbing from one place to another or doing dishes or... I don't know. It feels very tedious. And yes, if I were the most tedious man in all of Illyria, I could bestow all my tedium on you. But instead, I will be merciful and keep that tedium in a shoebox somewhere. I wish the people who created this movie had done the same. NT5TM.
Man, that was quick. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I've got some notes on what you said, too. See, the cool thing is, just like we talked about on Tuesday, is that I get to go at the end. If you're net control, you get to go at the end, and you get to comment on everybody else's comments. In fact, in some ways, you don't even have to have seen the film. You can just comment on other people's comments, and they think you saw the film. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. I did see the film, so I think I did. Okay, next up is Alan, NG5Y. Alan, welcome back. What are your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie, Escape from 2120 from 2020?
Well, to start off topic, even Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is better than Queen Kong. The movie was indeed slow. I didn't understand at least 90% of it. There were some obvious failings in the movie. I at least wasn't bored to tears or hideously insulted by it, but overall I enjoyed it. Back to net, NG5O.
Okay, that's another short and sweet, but okay. We'll see what we can do here. Next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your comments.
KI5KWG, give me a second here to flip back to page 1 of my notes. I'm just kidding. But I think I have more than I've heard so far. I missed the last 15 minutes because I had to update the software on my device, and it took a lot longer than I thought. So I didn't have time to finish before the net. I'm guessing on the ending here, but apparently, kind of the general plot was man versus society, I suppose, but kind of hard to be certain of that, not knowing the climax. And by the way, I couldn't find control on Tubi to play at a rapid rate, which was a little frustrating in the last hour. But first thought about the slowness of the plot is telling a story using dialogue, which was what seemed to be going on mostly. That's awkward. It's okay. But if you're going to do that, leave out the long pauses of silence where you just had opening shot each scene and no one's doing or saying anything. It was very strange to do that. We'll get into some of this on the acting, but y'all were talking about the plot hole, several of you, and I was thinking about when the girl's having the flashback about being there in the pet cemetery, and she's the lost girl, and she meets the winter woman, and I can't think of her name. Oh, Sally, I think. And let me reset. And Sally starts asking her about the Devil's Child story, which the girl says she doesn't know, hasn't heard, but she's going to tell her anyway. And I realized after that scene, it was so very awkward that was necessary, and the connection was obviously a little lost girl there, and the Devil's Child story included a little lost boy. So I guess that was the connection, but boy, they did a very poor job of making that connection. And so much of this came off as either an afterthought or poorly acted out scenes where they should have caught the holes that they were leaving in the way they were done. Maybe they just needed to refilm that scene. But I think that's probably what I've got on the plot there, and I still don't know how it's going to turn out based on what anybody else has said. This is KI5KWG. Back to net. Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it. Now back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. Yeah, well, you know what? You have a conundrum there that well, maybe not a conundrum, but a situation that I had once many years ago. Being the videophile movie guy that I am, I had a laser body, which was kind of a whodunit. Very slick period piece, great music by John Barry. In fact, it was difficult to even find that score anywhere for many years. It was well sought after, including me. I liked it. I was looking for it, but that's not the point of it. I had it on Laserdisc, and I rented the Laserdisc from up the road. This was when I lived in Detroit, and I got it back home, and for some reason I couldn't play it. I had a friend with me who wanted to see it. We were trying to figure out watched the film, but it was the movie, but the disc was wobbly since it was probably shrink wrapped and somebody left it in a car or something because it was a rental. And so as you play that thing, it goes from the inside out. So the most stable part is at the core, and then it plays all the way out to the very edge, which is the least stable part. And we couldn't, for the life of us, get the darn thing to play the final few minutes of the movie. And that just drove me nuts. And I remember Mike was my friend at the time, he says, well, let me see if I can smooth it out. And it cracked. He cracked it. I mean, he really cracked it, and it was very loud. Laserdiscs make loud sounds when they break. So it would take a while. Actually had to ask the guy at the video store how the movie ended because there was no way to find out at the time. And there was no internet to speak of at the time. So I thought that was pretty interesting in and of itself. So I tell that story only because I'm telling that story. Okay, I will now ask for any additional check-ins at this point before I give my comments. Anyone else want to join us this evening? Tonight's movie, by the way, I'm KE5ICX. Tonight's movie is Escape 2120, which is time travel. If you didn't see the movie, that's okay. We'll talk about time travel with you. So anyone else want to check in, please come in. Okay, well, my comments actually picking up on what others said because I have net control, I can do that. The pacing and being it's slow is always the death of any film. Having done stage work stuff in the past, I know that if your pacing is slow, your audience is going to all the life in your audience is going to die because people aren't going to react and act in entertaining ways. And sometimes this happens because of lack of energy. When it's a live production, something has happened. Your main actor is not up to snuff for whatever reason, and as such it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If your main actor is not acting in an exuberant and exciting way or an engaging way, the audience loses it, and then they never give anything back. Well, you don't have that in a movie, but you do have a director. The director is your audience, and the director has to catch that sort of thing. When the director does not catch it, for whatever reason, then you got a problem. So maybe this comes under kind of the procedural etymology of doing a movie, but if you don't tell your cast to pick up the pace, you're going to have some problems. Now, this is not professionals in the sense that I think they did get paid for something, but you're not going to see them in any films any time after that. And a lot of times what this can also mean is that the actors don't know their lines well enough, so they slow it down like you do Morse code to be able to understand it, because you're trying to think of in this case, you're trying to, instead of thinking of your next character, you're thinking of your next line, or your next few words, so that can slow it down. I thought overall, even though the acting was not great, it was a little better than I was expecting based on some of what I had read. But in any case, the slow pacing could explain that. Now, one of my favorite topics, and this is what seems to always happen with science fiction films that are not particularly good, is they fail at world building, my favorite phrase. And that is that this 2220 time frame, or whenever it's supposed to actually be, is not convincing. We can't really figure out anything about it. Yes, it is kind of an agrarian society or woodland society or whatever. They have some of this technology that's left over from previous generations, and that's fine, but none of it's really explained. There's no understanding as to what's going on. The Brotherhood is almost a comic relief. It reminds me of the Bowery Boys. And they've got something on the characterization to that effect. It's just, what are they trying to prove? What are they there for? Or what is this society? The only thing we know is that they have a bar. One bar in the entire... either. understand that they don't have much of a budget, and that's okay. But you don't have any. It's all, as was mentioned earlier, it's all exposition. You're talking, and that's it. So you have no visuals. You have a slowly paced story, and then in the end, the story itself, and someone else mentioned this, is they broke all the rules. You set this up, such as it is, and you say, oh wait, you can only go forward in time, and then now you can go backwards in time, and you can turn it sideways, and all the execute machining thing, it doesn't work, because now you've broken the very rules that you spent the whole movie to set up, and there's no real explanation. Now, I have to say, my brain has been polluted from the time travel movie Primer, or Premer. If you've never seen it or you're not familiar with it, don't watch it, because what will happen is you'll never understand another time travel movie ever again. It is probably the most complex time travel movie ever made, and we reviewed it here a few years back. Everybody had problems with it. There's even on YouTube a whole 2-hour thing trying to explain what happened, even though the movie isn't quite 2 hours long. So there you have it. Let me see if I got anything else. Oh yeah, the crime-free society and the brother. Well, we discussed that. I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me. And why is it? I mean, I looked at it and I saw the person, well, there were two people and they're wearing the same clothes. And I went, geez, here we go. Where we have the single-themed only clothes that you can wear. Planetary societies are like that, especially on Star Trek. They all wear the same unisex clothing, the same colors. Same thing with time travel movies. They all wear the same. Why do they do that? Well, wait, I know why. Because they don't have a budget. They probably bought those things over at Academy or something. So, kind of looked like it might have been. Okay, I'm losing my voice. I'm going to move on to the next section here. We'll start at the top again. This time we'll talk about characterization. If you have any problems trying to figure out who's who, I'll try and help you fill it in. So, Brandon, KI5SXE. Brandon, what do you guys say about characterization on this film? Was it everything that you expected it to be? I bet it was, from KE5ICX.
Yeah, I mean, KI5SXE here. I wasn't sure what to expect originally from the characterization, but performance. It was clunky and I think a little over the top at times. Just as an antagonist, I thought they could have done better. He was predictable and just, I don't know, goofy as a protagonist. Like, not tchotchke, stumbling around goofy, but just a little too much for my liking. So that was my only issue, I think. I could go into depth about all the different characters and how they're mostly superficial, but I don't know. You look at Sally and Doc, and they just kind of pop in and pop out, and they're kind of whimsical. I don't know. I wouldn't say that things were great in terms of characterization, but like I said, the two main characters kind of grew on me in their awkwardness, right? It's like the girl next door that quite hasn't blossomed, but needs, I don't know. You guys understand what I'm saying. KI5SXE, back to you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brandon, and there was that vibe going with it. If it could have been executed just a little bit better, I think it would have been okay. Just my opinion, but I'll defer my comments. Next up is KB9SOK. Sean, what did you think of characterization in this film?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, going into this film, as usual, I didn't read anything about it, so I didn't realize it was such a low-budget film until I started watching it, and then saw the acting and the characters there, and realized pretty quickly this had to be low-budget. Yeah, the acting, honestly, I felt was pretty bad. I think Cruise nailed it on the long pauses. I think that explains a lot of it. And I remember thinking that was painful too. And a lot of those scenes were just unnecessary. Them washing dishes and all that, and nothing really happening. But yeah, the acting was pretty rough. It seems like the professor and Sally were just, for theoretical scientists, they just didn't feel like theoretical scientists. I've only ever met a few professors that are in that kind of a field, and they didn't seem to act quite like that. So, for people that should have been super highly intelligent, I never really got that feeling that they were, which is never good. And the young man was okay, our main character. It wasn't the greatest acted, but also I'm not sure he had a lot to work with. He was the one character, we actually did learn something about. We did at least know, his child, a little bit about his childhood, and then losing his parents, and then obviously him wanting to find people that, he could connect with, which was obviously he decided to follow the professor and his wife. So at least we did get a little bit of development there, but not a whole lot. Unlike the rest of the characters, we really didn't learn a whole lot about. So yeah, and then obviously our bad guys, and you're right, Tom, it was almost like they were borderline comical. I don't know if that was their intent, was to write them that way. We got the lynchmen that were henchmen that were holding the guns in the wrong direction, had no clue. And I would have felt that if I'd been in the situation that young man was like, yeah, you could pretty easily fool these guys and get away. They were pretty clueless. So I don't know if that was intent or if that was just bad acting. I'm not real sure on that, but yeah, it felt almost, I don't know, to be honest, I don't even want to say high school level theater, but because I've actually seen better high school theater than this. I've seen the freebie theaters better than this. So it, like I said, it was pretty rough. Not a lot of characterization. Yeah, once again, I agree with the whole society saying, why were they all dressing alike and all that. That just, of course, also too, they also bought a $20 blanket from the thrift store to use for time travel capsules. So this was clearly a cheap film. Anyway, not a lot to say about characters in this one, even though that wasn't primarily all we had. But, kind of talk back on character, you got a movie that really just focuses on conversation. We kind of had a split decision, I felt, that on a movie we'd watched about a year ago, and I can't remember the name of it, the one where the guy basically lived forever and met everybody, including Jesus and all that, and that movie was 100% conversation. But I found that one interesting. It never felt like the pacing was slow. It kept your attention. You wanted to see what was going to happen next, and that was purely conversation. So you can have a film without action and still, be entertaining. And this one was just too slow. Anyway, back to that KB9SOK.
All right, very good, Sean. Thank you for those comments. Now, I will tell you this. I don't remember the name of the movie. I do know which one you're talking about. And it was a story written by Jerome Bixby. Bixby is well known for his Twilight Zone episodes that he did, as well as some of the really good Star Trek stuff. He worked for Roddenberry for a short time, including doing one of everyone's favorites, the Mirror Mirror episode, which has been redone in just about every Star Trek episode ever, so it was extremely popular. And we also watched the sequel, which was written partially by his son later on, and we watched it the following week. But Bixby was really good at spinning exposition quite well. So you're right, it is possible to do, but it really takes somebody with the expertise to do so. And having worked on Twilight Zone, I think you probably have that expertise. All right, next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what did you think of characterization on our fine film tonight, Escape 2120 from KE5ICX?
Short answer, wooden, flat, and confusing. Nicely planed wood. Very carefully smoothed down. They clearly bought an expensive sander. But yeah, so flat, so flat. I really liked the comment. I don't remember if it was the person just before me or someone before him who said, I don't want to insult high school drama because I've seen better high school drama than this. Yeah, it's just, everyone seems completely false. Hi, we're going to strangely pick you off the street and make you the person who winds up all of our affairs. We have no clear reason for that. And yes, we wrap ourselves in emergency escape blankets and we travel into the distant future for no clear reason. And yeah, you can sort of do that. And I mean, I guess there was the nice little nod to Pet Sematary, which was a horrible Stephen King novel that I absolutely hated. Wait, that's not a good thing. Although it is amusing to think of a really actually genuinely nice, non-evil, non-malevolent Pet Sematary. I don't think Stephen King actually thought of that one. I don't know. I just found everybody really... They knew their lines, and they didn't fidget or stare into the camera or jerk their heads back and forth, so they'd mastered a lot of the basics, which I haven't because I'm not a film actor. I do public speaking, and I try to make eye contact with everyone in the audience. But, yeah, wooden, flat, I think those were the two best words I've come up with all night. NT5TM.
Got you down, Tony. Thank you. Next up, we're our fine film, Escape 2120 from KE5ITX.
Well, in my opinion, they never explained why the heroine was so open to this stranger, who she had suspicions was the devil child, which you would think would double down on her not being accepting of him. It was obviously why our hero was attracted to her, but and there was no clear reason why the Brotherhood was so dead set on capturing this devil's child. I mean, why did it matter to them, and what was this core that they were trying to volunteer him into? There was a whole lot that was just kind of glossed over and never really explained. Back to net, NG5R.
Thank you, Alan. Next up, Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on characterization, the acting, that sort of jazz.
KI5KWG. The most outstanding negative was the villain, Samuel. I noted his name is Affleck, so I guess he's got family in the business. But that was so over the top for the villain, and it was distractingly so. Just took you right out of the story. Every scene he was in, that was pretty bad, and I guess we got the best takes. If they did multiple takes, I'm not really certain of that. But I'm sorry to say that, but that was awful. Doc, I thought, did a pretty good job. Sally seemed to be doing well, his wife, but it always seemed to be her scenes where the lines didn't move the plot like they needed to. I gave one example earlier. I'm not going to dwell on it, but it did seem like it was her lines delivered well. Seemed to be where the failing was, but it always seemed like it was a script problem and not her acting. And then finally, I wanted to comment that I thought Nalia was the best performer in all of them. Now, Story of My Life and Bane of My Existence, pretty girls will, get my attention. So, but I really thought she starred the film. She did the best job, I thought. and did the best job developing the character. And again, that's a script, not so much an acting matter. But curious about the holes in the direction that Tom mentioned, not being caught, but in her case seemed to be pretty well-rounded. That's what I've got on development, and I will have some things on stage 3. KI5, KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. I think we got kind of a universal thing on the acting and the you can start a fire with the woodiness. But okay, I'll go ahead and ask, since we're at Bud for the Loose, does anyone else want to join us this evening? Please come with your call, your name, and did you see tonight's movie Escape 2120? Please come now. Okay, no problem. Yes, I think we universally agree that Samuel is a pretty terrible character actor thing. Who he reminded me of is Biff from Back to the Future, the way he talks. And I think he thinks of himself as Biff from Back to the Future. I kept waiting for him to hit David on the head and go, McFly, McFly, McFly. That would make more sense than whatever he was upset about with David. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me either. It was really, really kind of that. So I agree with that. There was some, maybe going back a little bit to the plot, because people keep bringing it up. Is it the acting or the script that's got the problem? Well, I think it's a little bit of both. And again, there's that symbiotic relationship, too, in the actual writing, too. If the writing is uninspired, the actor isn't going to be inspired magically. Some really good actors are able to go in and say, I can do something with my character, can add things to the character and make it more interesting. As an example, I'm watching here on my little mini TV in front of Kojak, and Darren McGavin, who plays that character, does a lot of business with, physical things. I'm watching him now. He's doing his double takes and staring and looking. He's looking up and down, and he's grabbing his hat. He's making it very, very interesting. Now, the show itself was quite good, but he makes the character fun. And in this case, you got to make the characters engaging, and he don't really do that. David was okay. Our the gal, his girlfriend, and the name escapes me. She was quite good, I thought, overall, and was able to bring something to the story. But then if the script itself doesn't deliver either, then that's going to hurt the performance. So I don't know. It did have a lot of problems in that direction. Our Biff character, or Samuel, had the most animated character, and he thought he was great stuff. But what he was, as somebody else mentioned, is distracting. Didn't work. He was out of his character and motivation and all of that made no sense. The story didn't bring anything in that would help it, and he was just kind of annoying. I was hoping he'd get stuck in that transporter thing. And what is it with that transporter thing? Never mind. We'll keep that for the next line, for the next round. So, okay, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Let me see anything else. I was going to say about our two scientists, our astrophysicists. Now, one of the things they could have done that they could have stolen from Back to the Future is our wacky scientist, right? Doc Brown was really good. Our Doc, whatever he is, and Sally were kind of boring. And I think that this was an opportunity where the imitation would have been a good idea. Why not have the interview process, other people sitting in line waiting to find out what the job is, and they come out and they say they're nuts, or maybe I should call the cops, or something. I don't know, and then have them go in, and they're somewhat quirky, and you think, well, either they're evil geniuses, or they're geniuses, or something's wrong with them, and then trusting them might be a bad thing. And while we got a hint of it, that's all we got. There could have been much more they could have done to make those scenes more interesting with them. unfinished business, like I was alluding to earlier, might have helped in that regard. I don't know, bringing out those characterizations. But again, you need seasoned actors really to do that. People that are familiar with it, know their lines, and get into character, and then build from there. Bad, I think overall the Doctor's character was fair to middling. I give him a D+, C- on his acting overall, which was better than Biff got. But oh well, I digress. All right, let's move on to the next section. The next section can be of technical issues, if you'd like. They can be photography, sound, with music, lighting, or something that we haven't discussed earlier. We may go for another round after that. I don't know. We just have to see if there's enough gas in this tank to take it another round. But those are the ideas. Go ahead, and we'll start at the top with Brandon, KI5SXE. Brandon, what you heard it? What about the technical aspects of the film? What did you like, dislike from KE5ICX?
Yeah, that one's kind of tough because it depends on how much you just take a leap of faith and accept what they put forth to you as non-explanations, or do you actually try to figure out what's going on? On surface level, yeah, it was great. To be able to jump to different planets and not lose any time. And, yeah, it's awesome. Stay young forever, travel forever. But how does it work? What does it actually do? Technical aspects, there's complete fail. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, it looks pretty cool from a standpoint of walking into a closet and touching a wall and being somewhere else, but I don't quite understand the technical aspect of it. So that's about all I have to say. Sorry, I'm not more help. KI5SXE.
No apologies at all. That's one of the things, and one of the interesting things about discussing these movies is that, sometimes there's something to discuss and other times there isn't, and sometimes we have stuff that comes in and you go, whoa, wait, there's something deeper meaning, and we take a film that we originally came in with the idea of saying, I'm going to trash this thing because it was so bad, and then you figure out some element that really is inspirational. It somehow actually works. We just didn't catch it in our collective watching of the film. That can make a difference. So I'm cool with that. No problems at all. At any rate, we will continue down the list. We've got Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on the technical aspects of the film. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, obviously special effects, there wasn't a whole lot here. It was, of course, a super low budget. I think they shot their entire budget on the closet transport there, where they got the little screen that they used a couple times. And I think that's where their entire budget went, literally. Even though I've actually seen people do similar things like that on YouTube. Yeah, I'm not sure that required a lot of budget to do that, but hey, that was the most high-tech thing that we've seen. But once again, it's low budget, so if this was an indie-style film, I guess you can't really knock it for that. We obviously had our time-freezing device, which pretty much looked like a 555 timer, a capacitor, a few resistors, and then a 7-segment display, and a couple of D-cell batteries. So that's interesting. And I guess apparently, once again, how did the circuit stay powered if you were freezing everything in the box? So once again, we're kind of back to almost a movie plot issue. But and why did they even need a box? They were wrapped in a foil bag. and in their little vaults, why didn't they fill it full of stuff? They didn't know what they were going to run into. You think they would have had maybe some food, or they would have put it inside their foil bag so they would have some snack on. At least the kid was smart enough to bring a protein bar or something with him, just in case. So Yeah, okay, not the most advanced sci-fi effects we've ever seen. And yeah, our teleport device was, yeah, they obviously glanced over that, but I guess they're just assuming, since they're saying that the kid moved 800 years in the future, that all that, we'd advance that 800 years. The only thing they kind of threw out there was that they used the doctor's freezing technology so you didn't age when you traveled, but they never really explained how they actually traveled and how did they get to all those other planets and install the teleports. Well, you'd have to have ships to do that at some point, but so yeah, there was a lot of little technical things, but on the positive side, I could always hear the people. The audio wasn't horrible. We've seen some movies where you couldn't even hear them. The lighting wasn't horrible. Even with the night shots, we could at least see the people clearly. So we've definitely seen movies where you couldn't hardly even tell what was going on because it was so dark. So that wasn't an issue with this movie. So there was a few positives. They didn't make a few basic mistakes. We never accidentally seen the boom mic drop down, which I've literally seen in a movie before. And they didn't even bother to edit it out. So yeah, it could have been even worse with a low-budget film. So that part they did okay. I don't really remember if there was any real music with this film. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. Yeah, I don't remember that part. They probably couldn't afford it, would be my guess, as far as that goes. But yeah, all I got to say about the technical aspect of it. So yeah, back to net. This is KB9SOK.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Yes, there was some music in the film. It was kind of an electronic hodgepodge that they did. So it was there. It was used sparingly, usually at the beginning and the end of the film. In fact, the ending music was somewhat irritating now that I think about it. But personal opinion, I guess. But at any rate, that's what they had. But it wasn't used very much in the film, just a little bit here and there. Okay, next up, Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on the technical aspects of this film from KE5ICX?
Well, thank you, Tom. I really appreciated that comment about Biff. Yes, Biff. That's just perfect. The music, yeah, there really isn't music. It's just an occasional note played on a keyboard. Squeak, squawk, whistle, ding. It's kind of slow and irritating. The technical aspects of it are, well, it's tough to make a movie so cheap. I really feel for them, and I appreciate the choice they made. If you can't do an effect, well, then just don't do it at all. Don't show the time travel or interdimensional jumping. Just bling, something happens. We're not going to tell you. I really wonder if they even had more than one teleportation booth, or if they just did all the scenes where it was painted brown on one day, and then all the scenes was painted sort of a light ecru color another day. That would certainly have saved on the cost of door hinges. And I can appreciate the fun of an intergalactic teleportation booth. I think that would be an enormously interesting thing to have. I don't think I would keep it in the bedroom. It's just me, but that's not where I want strangers to walk into the house. So they did their best, I think. I don't think it was, there's nothing about the technical aspects of the movie that are going to make me, think about how the writing was awful and the acting was wooden, or make me stop thinking of those things. But, they did their best. Lots of small shots and medium shots. That's kind of how you can tell a movie is cheap, is that they can never afford to pan out and show anything of any size, unless it's just a wooded city park. NT5TF.
Thank you, Tony. Oh, so true, so true. What the camera doesn't show tells you everything that you should know. Next up is Alan, NG5Y. Alan, what did you think about the technical aspects of tonight's film, which is, what is it? Escape 2120 from KE5ICX.
kind of agree they spent all their budget inside the teleportation booth, and maybe a little bit on their kind of totally unexplained space travel moment that they had during the film. Beyond that, to film the same tent over and over again and dress it slightly different so that you can reuse the same tent for several different rooms. Like I said, I really appreciated the Biff comment. I thought that really fits the description completely. And with that, back to Ned, NG5Y.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Next up, Cruz, KI5KWG. Your thoughts on the technical aspects of our fine film this evening?
KI5KWG. I noticed the music, which I don't normally, and something's really special about it. And in this case, I thought there was something a little special about it. In the very opening scene, I guess it was, he's coming down, or one of the opening scenes, he's coming down the steps in his red sneakers and heading down the sidewalk. And it was just an electric guitar just playing something very simple. And it caught my attention. And I said, well, that's kind of pleasant, and it sets the scene nicely. And there were several other times, or not several, but there were a few other times in the film that happened, and I noticed, and I thought it was effective. It was unusual and effective. Okay, my other comment here on part 3 is wardrobe. And hear me out here. I think that with one change, this film could have... This film could have at least gotten a Wikipedia article out of this one change. And it's 3 words for Nalia. Leopard skin bikini. It's a sci-fi staple. We needed a leopard skin bikini. That's what I had, and I think you'll all agree with me on this. And my final comment for tonight is, Tom, I missed the title of the film. You were mentioning about the complex time travel film, and it had a longer explanation on YouTube than it did the actual film. Would you please give me that title again? And this is KI5KWG, back to net.
Oh, Cruz, what a terrible question to ask. But yes, I will tell you with great caution, because this film could cause brain damage. It's called Primer, Primer. And I think we reviewed this a couple of years ago. And it is considered by people who have seen the film, or it's kind of got a cult status, and that is it's the most complex time travel film ever made. It has multiple looping time events, not just with multiple characters, like you've got the principal character 2 interacting with 5, interacting with protagonist number 3, with number 2. You literally have to sit down and actually kind of draw out and figure out which versions of your main characters are experiencing whatever's happening in the scene that you're watching, because it's a multiple looping event. It is very difficult to understand and figure out, and I'm not sure even the producers could figure it out. But because of the complexity, they expect you to understand what's going on. Which with time travel, just was mentioned in this review by this fellow here, this Hal Peterson, is that let the buyer beware, let the viewer beware. It's time travel, it's going to be confusing. So there you have it. But Primer's the name of the movie. It probably is worth a watch, just because it's kind of interesting. But your brain will start to do flip-flops at some point, I guarantee it. see here. What I was going to say. Here are some of my comments. One of them is audio related. We'll get into the geeky part, I guess, first, and that is that now the audio was kind of okay, but not really. I mean, I have to deal with this stuff when we do our video stuff. We're doing industrial videos that for our company, and one of the things that comes out of it is sound. We have to make sure that they are voiceover sounds reasonable. We have green screen shots we do, and we use a lavalier mic. We've got a boom mic. We've got all these different things, and what you have to make sure is that the sound sounds as clean and clear as possible. No echoes. Echoes are bad. It takes you out of the moment. It sounds kind of weird. This film did have it, I think mainly because they were filming in an actual buildings, homes, things like that, the office, the department. All of those were actual locations, so the walls had hard walls. The walls were hard walls, meaning there's going to be an echo. So it's very difficult to work with. Boom mics, decent boom mic will fix that. You can either put places above your actor's head or slightly to the front, or you can run them down below them if they're looking down or towards the person sitting perhaps. Those things can happen, and you can just keep it out of frame. That's a big help. It does make a difference as if you were at one of our meetings, the DARC meetings during COVID, which we had on the internet. Bob Heil was there, and he was talking about rejecting sound coming from behind the mic, which causes the echoes that we're talking about. So a very good mic can do that. Your production doesn't have a lot of money. You're going to use whatever available mics you got, and that sometimes isn't always a good idea. So while it may have seemed acceptable, you could tell it was an amateur production because of the echoes. That was one thing I saw. Another one is the what do you call it? Reverse angle shots that they did, which has the actors talking to one another. It was plainly obvious to me that these were shot at different times. David was talking to Doc. I think Doc was sitting at his desk or sitting down, and there's a reverse view back and forth as they speak. And I'm sorry, the first scene I noticed it most was at the orphanage, or when talking to the gal telling David to get a job. You could hear the echo on her voice when she's speaking, then you get the reverse shot with David, and his audio is good. It's better. The other thing that you see, and I noticed this both in that particular shot and then the one in the car, is that you've got to position your actors so that their line of sight matches, presumably, that unseen other actor. These shots are done at different times. Like in the car, you don't have enough room to put two people in the car and a camera. So you've got the cameraman sitting in the passenger seat and the driver's seat going back and forth and talking. Well, when you're doing that, the line of sight has to match up. They weren't matching up. David, I think, was looking slightly down in one scene, if I remember correctly. And it was most obvious with Biff. I mean, what was his name? Samuel. There's a shot where he's not even looking at David. I presumably he's looking at the rest of his council of bad boys or something, but they're not even there either. They're not in that shot at the angle that he's looking at. What do you... Did somebody forget continuity and forget to do the shot correctly? Because you're supposed to know where your marks are, where your people are supposed to be, where your actors are going to be, so that it looks, and when you fit it all together, it works. Very often, is when you do video or movies or anything else, is you get multiple shots. Which is that you could have like a head shot, and then you get a medium shot, and then you get a far shot, or as I mentioned, the reverse angles or something like that. And in order to cover our mistakes, we do that all the time. We'll shoot the same scene or the same dialogue 3 different ways, all using them to make sure that the audio is same, obviously, but the picture will have different angles so that when you flub a line or something doesn't quite, and it looks okay. You just got to make sure that your marks are the same, that people are looking in the right place. You want to make sure that all of them are wearing the same clothes, continuity shots, the stuff that you've got. I watch movies and I see things like a glass of wine, and it's in one shot the actor is a headshot and the actor is speaking, and you see a full glass of wine in their hand sitting on the table in front of them as they're seated. Then you do a reverse shot of the other actor, and you look, and that glass of wine is now half full. Well, that's a very obvious version. The same thing happens when you line of sight stuff. So I have a tendency to notice those things, and it's very easy to spot in amateur productions. You can see it in major productions too. Major motion pictures, you'll pick up on that full version stuff that you see. So that I thought was interesting. And then finally, one of the things is the closet transporter with a wiggly wobbly wall thing. And as Tony mentioned, the chrome hinges in that. Boy, was that terrible. Why do that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It was just really terrible. And putting them in the bedroom, well, I think each one of those pup tents that they had, that was the whole room. That's all they had, except for the bar that had a big room with a wiggly wobbly transporter thing. So I don't know. If you're going to do something like that, to me, I'm just talking something up, it would seem to me, just use a standard door. I don't know. Just say this is the way they are now and paint it industrial gray or something. Maybe the paint is special. Glows in the dark. I don't know. Do something along those lines. Or don't use it at all, which I think was Tony's comment as well. Or create an effect. If you can create the video effect where you get the translucent screen, you should be able to do some sort of a transporter shimmering effect, which would have made a lot more sense than the wiggly wobbly door that they had. That just looked like amateur production stuff. Threw me out of the moment as well. So that's what I had on all of that stuff. So technically speaking, music is I don't disagree. There was a couple. I don't remember the guitar thing, but I'm sure if I listened to it again, it would have been fine. I would notice it if I watched the film a second time, which I will never do. But just thought I would mention it. Okay, so anyone else? Let's see. Let me do this. I'll go ahead and ask if there's anything else you want to bring to the net this evening. Please come with your call, and I'll just go down the list that way. Anything at all we missed, or some comments, or anything you want to bring, come with your call now. All right, I thought that might be the case. Give me a second here. I am going to find something here. On Facebook, I was going to go and look up the stuff for next week's movie. There's a guy on Facebook, his name is Bill Hedges, and he's probably my age, maybe a little older. He has too much money, he lives in Iowa somewhere, and he makes his own movies. And he is a huge fan of Washington State, as am I, and he's created a reproduction of the Jupiter 2 and some other things. I think it's called Rocket Lab Studios is his thing. But he's making these little vignette films. Cosmic Cat, I think, is one of them. And he's kind of fun stuff. If you want to learn more about him, just go look for him on Facebook, Bill Hedges, and you'll see some of the stuff that he does. It's really cute, actually, more than anything. But he has some fun. I've seen some of his short video productions, and they are quite entertaining. So I just thought I'd mention it. All right, let me get back to what I was going to do. I stopped, and his little screen popped up, and I got distracted. So That's why I think so. Now I'm going to go to Astro Movie, over to Guides, which is where the movies are listed, featured movies. And I find, let's see, we have Escape 2120. And then next week I've got Infinity Chamber from 2016. That is the film. I think it's another... this one's on Tubi, so maybe it's a little better than just an amateur film. We'll find out. I'll send this information out to you hopefully tomorrow morning. I'm going to be traveling, so I'll try and get it out before I leave tomorrow. Otherwise, it'll probably be tomorrow evening. And that'll be our movie for Friday night. Infinity Chamber says a man is trapped in an automated prison, must outsmart a computer to escape and try and find his way back to the world which may already be wiped out. Infinity Chamber from 2016. That's it, gang. That's all I got. We almost made it to an hour and a half. We made it to 11:50, so not too shabby. We'll see y'all later. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Good night, Tom, and thank you. I watched this movie on my cell phone, so I couldn't hear the echoes or any sound problems. It was just the tinny cell phone speakers. But darn it, now I want to spot check it again to see if I can hear the bad sound. NT5TM. Thank you again.
Yeah, Roger. Thank you from Kilo India 5 Sierra X-Ray Echo. Good night, all.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf. Good night, all. Keep an ear out for SpaceX launch.